Hello, welcome to this your channel on the Meta Eurofan, that's me. Estonia keeps having a good performance in the competition, being the last proof of that the viral sensation presented by the guys of Bisminus and Prologue during last year's contest, with which however they only will be able to get a 20th place. Even so, the country remains faithful to its Eurovision appointment, looking to keep showcasing the best of the Estonian musical talent to the rest of Europe. Now we will see who will be in charge of taking the bait down from them by representing the Baltic nation on the main stage of Basel. Let's go! For today's episode, I'm going to review the Estonian entry for Eurovision 2025, which will be represented by the rapper and singer Tommy Cash with the song Espresso Macchiato. First of all, make sure to have prepared your coffee, maybe with some cookies or sweets, as we are going to dive into eclectic and singular world of a pretty unusual artist. Having said this, let's move on with the review. As usual, we start by checking out his biography and career before living by first-hand his Eurovision experience. Thomas Timmermans, mostly well known as Tommy Cash, which has nothing to do with the renowned American country singer who has casually the same stage name and sometimes known also as Kanye is an Estonian rapper, singer, dancer, producer and visual artist coming from the country's capital, Tallinn. His family origins are pretty clear in this case, as he has been commenting different versions of his family background in the different media when he's asked about the topic by making it on purpose. His childhood and adolescence were rebellious and problematic times according to himself, by usually having problems in his high school for taking drugs from very early age, by running away from the police many times, and even in one occasion his parents had to pay a fine for painting illegal graffiti. He will never graduate from high school, but he will later put his efforts on art, starting with painting and breakdance. By 2012, he will start to make incursions on songwriting, orienting mostly to hip-hop, releasing his first official singles during that same year in SoundCloud. That will be part of both his first EP released in 2014 and his debut studio album released at the end of that same year, then formally beginning his career as a musical artist. In those first years, he will also have collaborations with many international artists in different musical genres, standing out in particular the one he done with the Russian rave group Little Big, who were the Russian representatives of Eurovision for the edition of 2020 that was later cancelled, for one of the singles released by the band for their second studio album in 2015. It will be the first of many collaborations that will be done by Tommy with the band in the following years, but as a featured artist in other songs and making cameos in some of their music videos. He will start to get much more attention in 2016 with the release of the single Win a Lotto, then getting himself more recognized in the musical scene of the country and receiving acknowledgements for his artistic work, motivating him to keep releasing singles, to keep collaborating with other artists, and to participate in musical festivals both in Estonia and abroad. In 2018, he releases his second studio album that will be widely promoted with a tour by many cities in Estonia and Europe. After some break period following the lifting of the restrictions due to the COVID-19 pandemic, he releases his second EP in 2021, while the following year will be very busy for him with an extensive tour by Europe, North America and Australia. And just in late last year he will release his third EP, being his most recent musical production to date. On the other hand, in these recent years, he would also start to have his first links with the Eurovision world, first with Karija, who was the Finnish representative at the contest 2 years ago during the edition held in Liverpool, United Kingdom, by featuring in his single This Crazy X Party, that would take part of the second studio album of the rapper released on last year. And more recently with Just Klein, who was the Dutch representative on last year during the edition held in Malmö, Sweden, being disqualified before the grand final, as we already know, situation that will influence once again in his latest single United by Music, which is part of the 9th studio album of the rapper released just a few weeks ago. Apart of his musical career, Tommy had also made incursions in other activities throughout the years. He has been in the world of fashion, being a model for many fashion designers in their fashion shows, taking a more irreverent and edgy perspective much later by wearing costumes out of the ordinary, looking to promote himself as an anti-model. As a conceptual artist, he has directed many of his music videos. He has done exhibitions in the fields of photography, sculpture, painting, and merchandising, playing extensively with the satire and cultural appropriation. He has participated as fashion and furniture designer for some big brands, and he also has several appearances in advertising campaigns. Tommy stands out to be quite transgressive, eccentric, and edgy in everything he does, at the same time looking to transmit important messages and raise awareness of the people through the social criticism and the questioning of several social stereotypes. He has commented himself in many interviews that he does not follow a particular trend, but instead he keeps open to different ideas and whatever comes to his mind, giving him some unpredictable character. You never know what he will do next. Following that same line, he will have the idea on last year on attempting to represent his country at Eurovision, a little bit following the steps from Karija and Just Klein, who have already done it, and though without having any certainty that eventually he will have the chance to do so. Let's see then how the Eurovision adventure begins for him. Keeping his usual strategy, the Estonian public broadcaster will organize once again its national final Epilogue, which arrived to its 17th edition to select both the artist and the song that will represent the Baltic country in Switzerland. The submission period will be opened by mid-September of last year for the Estonian artists and songwriters who wanted to send their proposals, following the same rules already implemented previously and closing it by last mid-October. After the deadline, it was known that 175 proposals were received, 65 of them in Estonian and the remaining 110 in other languages, specifically in English, Italian, German, and French. In this sense, the figure gotten this time will be slightly lower compared to the previous edition. Thereafter, a 34-member expert panel will be in charge of selecting a group of 15 finalists that will compete in the national final, which were revealed in early last November, and bringing Tommy among the chosen ones, raising a huge favoritism since the very first moment, even without knowing the song he will perform. On the other hand, there was also another group of 20 additional shortlisted artists for the same expert panel, from which 16 finalists will be selected through a wildcard round voted solely by the public. This online voting will last for a week between late December and early last January, where the singer Mantalada will end up being chosen as the last finalist in the lineup one day after the closure of the voting window. Among the selected artists, some well-known faces stood out that were previous Estonian representatives at Eurovision. In one hand, there was the Swedish singer Anna Selin, who represented the Baltic country in 2002 during the edition held precisely in the Estonian capital Tallinn, who participated in the national final as a finalist. And in the other hand, there was the singer Jarli Padal, who was the Estonian representative in 2007 during the edition held in Helsinki, Finland, and the singer Lara Polvere, known for representing the country twice, first as part of the gruesome trial in 2005 and later in a duet with the renowned Estonian singer Koi Tome in 2017, both editions held in Kiev, Ukraine. They will participate in the wildcard round with Jarli as a soloist and Laura in a duet with the Estonian rapper Aegi. For those who are familiar with the format of the national final, they must have been questioning what happened with the semi-finals, because we have only talked about the finalists so far. This was precisely one of the big changes in the format for the edition. The broadcaster announced earlier, before opening the submission period, that they would organize only one televised show this time, due to the budget cuts currently suffered by the broadcaster, representing in this case an obstacle to organize the national final with more shows as they were accustomed to. The rest of the dynamic in the format will remain similar without significant changes. The televised show will take place in last mid-February, where all the finalists will have the chance to perform their proposals, with the jury and the public picking the 3 finalists that will advance to the super final, being Tommy Cash among them. Then, during that super final, the voting results from the public confirmed the initial favoritism towards Tommy, being proclaimed as the winner of the national final and gaining subsequently the right of representing Estonia on the main stage of Basel. Now that I have my coffee prepared and ready, I'm going to analyze in further detail this proposal with which Tommy will attend the contest soon. Following the unpredictable trend in his songs, the melody presented is a pop track with rap and electro swing elements. On the other hand, Tommy does not stand out precisely for being a notable singer, being mostly a rapper, but at least when I can listen in the studio recording of the track, the single parts are pretty acceptable. The lyrics have been written in a linguistic variety or pidgin named Broccolino, something like a mix of Italian and English commonly spoken with the Italian-American community in the district of Brooklyn in New York, in a phenomenon quite similar to Spanglish. By Tommy himself together with the Finnish songwriter Johannes Naukarinen, known for being one of the songwriters of Cha Cha Cha, the Finnish entry performed by Kariya 2 years ago at Eurovision, as well as the already aforementioned Sonny's Crazy X-Party. The context behind the lyrics makes a playful exploration to luxury, indulgence, and carefree life, focused through the symbolic figure of the well-known beverage of Espresso Macchiato, which gives the song's title. Tommy himself has commented in song interviews that the song came on in a very natural way, without having the goal of Eurovision in mind. It is supposed in this sense that he will pick to participate at Epilogue after deciding on submitting an entry for the national final. Reading the lyrics more in detail, previously translated initially, you can see how he plays with several stereotypes associated with the Italian culture from a humorous and at some point extravagant point of view. In the first verse, he introduces himself as Tommaso, thus creating a character as a reflection of the typical Italian American, that despite having a hectic lifestyle, as well as the challenges and struggles he has to face in daily life, he remains with a carefree attitude, expressed with the roleplay of the classic idiom, when life gives you lemons, make a lemonade, by using instead the idiom, life may give you lemons when dancing with the demons, and also with the phrase no stresso, no stresso. No need to be depressed. The chorus reinforces the importance of the Espresso Macchiato as a symbol of indulgence and carefree attitude, which is also part of the daily rituals of Tommaso's character, as one of those little pleasures you usually have. Then in the second verse, the track dives much more in the lavish and indulgent part of the character, emphasizing his wealthy side, as well as the hard work he dedicates every day, by also taking a resilient and maybe a little optimistic attitude ahead of the circumstances of life, expressed with the phrases "life is like spaghetti, it's hard until you make it," and "no stresso, no stresso. It's gonna be espresso." It is to stand out by the way that the lyrics have raised some controversy in part of the Italian society as expected, so much so that many associations and political figures from the Italian government have requested the EBU to disqualify the entry for the contest for considering discriminatory and offensive towards Italian people. To this, one will have to look at the message intended with the track. Life is complicated most of the time, and many times you do not have to take things that seriously. Sometimes it's fine adding some humor and fun specific things in situations, and especially the importance of living in the moment. Having known a little more about this unique track, let's take a look on how he has intended to reflect its contest through the official music video, which had two versions in particular. Our first version, released by Tommy ahead of his participation in the national final, had recreated a segment from the 1982 movie called 66 Frames from America, where the renowned artist Andy Warhol was portrayed eating a hamburger of the well-known fast food chain Burger King, which later was used by the chain itself as part of the advertising campaign in 2019, following the trend of surrealism and cultural appropriation that he usually applies in his music videos. Then, ahead of his picture in the national final, he will work on a second music video with a concept pretty much elaborated, that he will release just a few days ago. This last version, which is presented as the official music video in Eurovision's official channel, is the one I'm going to analyze up next. The plot begins with a split screen with backgrounds in light brown and dark brown in which the boxes are put in place, with two versions of Tommy emerging from both boxes while they drink a sip of coffee. That are holding in their hands. The one from the left box is the original Tommy with the same blue suit and white shirt, And the one for the rival is Tommaso, which will be the Italianized version of Tommy with the blonde hair, his suit in dark brown and his shirt in light brown. As the initial chorus is heard, you can start to appreciate close-ups from Tommy and Tommaso while keeping the split screen. Tommy has a copy paper cup in his hand with a yellow postling having the phrase both for Tommy, and Tommaso in the other hand has a coffee ceramic cup in his hand with an orange post-it, instead having the phrase 12 points to Estonia. Naturally, Tommy was not going to wait until the contest way to call the people to vote, and what a best way than making it in advance shoot the music video itself. Tommy and Tommaso drink another sip of coffee, and thereafter they drop the coffee cups and make a funny dance, seeing later a sequence with also many people offering them coffee cups, which they initially refused, until they give in and take ones while the shot is turning to one side, insinuating that the screen was not really split, drinking another sip, and right after throwing them aside. By the first verse, Tommy and Tommaso interact with each other by doing another funny dance based in swing, initially being synchronized and later by separate, and shortly after they both won by the area by trespassing the false division without ceasing to have the same funny and amusing attitude. In the first chorus, the shot changes, now seeing Tommy and Tommaso face to face, while a floating coffee cup appears from below, which has the name of Tommy Cash on it with two straws, a white one and a brown one, making a contrast with the backgrounds by the way, until Tommy and Tommaso are suddenly absorbed by the straws to inside of the coffee cup, transporting them to a surreal feel in which they are both combined in a single person, looking like they have merged. In a close-up of the merged Tommy, you can see that the post-it is now different as it has the phrase winner Eurovision 2025, which if I finding it funny, there is no doubt that it is a declaration of intent. The scene changes again by the second verse, now seeing a very peculiar and fun scene, with Tommy dressed out with a coffee cup, joined by two people dressed with a milk carton and a sugar sachet, although with the word misspelled, probably made it on purpose, as well as four baristas holding Italian coffee makers with their hands on and very funny acts. Shortly after, the scene changes once again, now seeing full bodyguards, as well as a frame in the lower right side with a man which will be translating the song in sign language. Every one of the bodyguards make a funny dance at once, without ceasing to have their serious attitude anytime, and then the lower frame gets wider by showing a close-up of the sign language interpreter. It is to stand out by the way that the man featured in this part is Yegor Andreev, known for being the sign language interpreter of the Estonian public broadcaster that appears in the live transmissions of both Epilogue and on the television shows of the broadcaster. By the second chorus, the merged Tommy and the bodyguards perform a funny choreography which incorporates the classic gestures for the hands usually made by Italian people. Then the bodyguards lift him up by his arms for a few seconds, looking himself like a diva. They take him down shortly after, they cover him completely for a few instants and they move apart subsequently to now see the merged Tommy floating by the air with coffee bean balloons. The fun dynamic is continued with shots of the bodyguards that are still doing funny dances, other ones of the sign language interpreter that is having a lot of fun translated as soon as it can be seen, and of the bodyguards with the merged Tommy leaning back himself to the floor. Towards the end of the performance, you can see the merged Tommy still floating in the air, under the original Tommy is singing another shot appearing to the screen. He looks up bravely and he shrugs his shoulders, seeing him holding a coffee paper cup in his hand with his name. After the curious concept scene in the first version of the music video, there were high expectations on how he will intend to present his proposal ahead of the national final, taking into account the unpredictable and surprising factor that Tommy usually has in everything he does. Let's see then, how was his live performance during his participation at Epilogue? The performance begins with the stage mostly in dark, by Tommy and two other people next to him in a dark-like effect, with him drinking a sip of the coffee cup with his name, just like in the singles cover while the song intro is heard. With the initial chorus, some spotlights are on Tommy and the two men with him, which are dressed like bodyguards, the same ones that will eventually appear in the second version of the music video, while he is wearing the same blue suit with a super long tie and the same posted on the right side of the suit as he will be seen in the second version of the music video. It comes to attention at some point that the visual graphics are featuring imitations of euro bills and coins with coffee cups and grains, and with the name of Tommy on them. Thereafter, he drops the coffee cup and starts to perform the same funny dance seen later in the second version of the music video, seeing coffee cups falling in the visual graphics while the bodyguards are still motionless. Just after the first verse, another bodyguard arrives to give Tommy another coffee cup, from which he briefly sips to later take it away, and right after both him and the bodyguard start to do shrugs with several imagery of coffee cups in the background of the visual graphics. With the first verse, Tommy and the bodyguards, which will be the dancers in the end, do a funny choreography. Under the chorus, when two more bodyguards arrive on the stage, with three of them lifting up Tommy from his arms for a few seconds, looking himself as an absolute diva. And just after taking him down, the four bodyguards keep doing funny choreographies together with Tommy, while there are instant coffee such as with his name and the song's title, as well as coffee grains in the visual graphics. These same funny choreographies will be used in turn for the second version of the music video. By the second verse, now it's seen that the bodyguards have made a sort of armchair for Tommy to sit, and shortly after they make a barrier to protect him while he continues with the performance. But curiously, before heading to the chorus again, one of the bodyguards breaks the monotony by doing a very energetic dance move which evidently gets all your attention. For the reprise of the chorus, now the bodyguards make a sort of motorcycle in which Tommy rides, while the names of the different types of coffee appears in the visual graphics. Shortly after, they're rising up like a rock star, starting to spin around with him, which looks interesting and funny, especially with the shots from above, while there is an explosion of coffee beans in the visual graphics, then later closing with all of them resembling a tandem, thus finishing the performance. There is no doubt that it has been a unique performance by catching especially the extravagance and irreverence transmitted with the song. In addition, that it is a true reflection of that unmistakable eccentric style that is characteristic from him, and I have to admit that it has been quite funny, so it will not leave anyone indifferent. Surprisingly to what I expected, the vocal performance from Tommy was pretty right, very similar to the studio recording, and that definitely has contributed to the effectiveness of the staging, which ended up widely convincing both the jury and the public. Making up the conclusions from all what we have seen so far, I can describe the Estonian entry for this year in 3 words: irreverent, fun, and transgressive. The proposal follows the edgy and experimental trend presented by the country during last year, and I had to admit that the proposal left me quite confused at the beginning, but after diving up more in his artistic and music style, I could understand that he really presented a very elaborated concept which ended up surprising. About the song itself, I will say that I neither like it nor dislike it. Although I have to admit that the melody is very catchy, I recognize it had its funny and humorous side, although I have very clear that it is going to be a song that I will not listen that often. Many people are anticipating to affirm, however, that it is a joke entry that is based on trivial things to make you laugh and that's it. But I strongly disagree with that, and I'm going to explain why. It is true that funny entries have always existed at Eurovision, but there is a distinguishing point that it is important to stand out. Some of them are limited to offer a show that some tiny borders of the bizarre, or you just find it amusing without offering you anything extra in terms of the proposal and not even emerging as a potential winner. I can mention for a few examples the French and Spanish entries in 2008, performed by Sebastian Delia with the song Divine and Rodolfo Chiquilicuatre with the song Baile Chiqui Chiqui respectively, or the Norwegian entry in 2022 performed by Subwoofer with the song Gita Wolf Manana, while some other ones are much better elaborated and well made by having a deep message beyond its funny concept. Among very clear examples, I can mention the Italian entry in 2017 performed by Francesco Gavani with the song Occidentalis Karma, or the Croatian and Dutch entries of last year performed by Baby Lasagna with the song Ring Ting Tagadin and Just Klein with the song Europapa respectively, and this entry is definitely classified in this last category. For the staging in Basel, I do not know if he will be changed anything from what he presented in the national final, taking into account that, as I have said before, although Tommy usually has his concept pretty well defined, it is also true that he also can diversify on the go, but keeping it always in close into the concept. A proof of that was precisely the recording and production of the second version of the music video, which took many elements from his performance in the national final. I can imagine that he will be presenting his proposal live in many of the Eurovision pre-parties of the season, although there is nothing confirmed so far. For now, it will be a matter of time of waiting in his turn to go to the stage to see what he surprises us when he presents his unique proposal. This has been the Estonian proposal this year for the contest. I already have given my impressions to you, but I would like to know what do you think as well. Do you think it will stand out at the contest, or do you think it will go unnoticed for the rest of Europe instead? In any case, let me know in the comments down below so we can keep the discussion. And this is it for today's episode. Before I finish, remember to like this video if it has been of your taste, as you can help me by giving me your support and it could be reached to more people. Subscribe to my channel if you have not done it yet, enable notifications by hitting the bell, and find me through my social media. Take care and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.